everybody.
Hello.
Hi, today we're going to be joined on our chat show with Vicky from Promises Jewellery. Now Vicky creates really amazing minimal pieces of jewellery made from jesmonite and metals, and she's going to talk through her process today, where her inspirations comes from, because they're quite architectural, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're really neat. And I know that she's had a big role model in her life from a family member. So hopefully we'll get to find out today about that.
Yeah, she's got a really interesting story and kind of concept behind her store.
Yeah, and she's been running for quite a while now, so we'll get to learn about what London life is like as a practicing maker and designer.
Yeah, hearing about her kind of lockdown situation, how that's affected her business and what she's learned from going through that.
Yeah, because I think she normally trades at Canopy Market, and obviously all the markets have been temporarily closed, so we're going to find out what that's been like for her.
Yeah.
See whether she's managed to maintain her online sales. Yeah.
Just hoping we've done this.
Oh, here she is. She's just coming in.
Oh, brilliant. Here we go. Just connecting.
Hi.
Hi, Vicky. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Yeah, we're really well, thanks.
Thanks. Yeah.
How have you been finding everything at the moment?
Yeah, it's been pretty crazy times. Yeah, I heard as you were just coming in, you were talking about Canopy Market, which I've been doing every week for a really long time.
Yeah.
And haven't been doing that at all, so that's been a huge change.
Yeah, it must be. Well, for everyone listening, this is Vicky. She's from Promises Jewellery. And maybe, Vicky, you can just give a bit of an intro about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, sure. I make architecturally inspired jewellery out of this stone composite called jesmonite. So it's a cast composite. And I use the granite and marble versions. So it's something that I cast, but it looks a lot like natural stone. And I've been doing that for about 5 years, probably part-time, and then I've been doing it full-time for about 3 years.
Oh wow, so quite a while then.
Yeah, a little while.
Yeah, because we had a market with you back at the Eco Pavilion for the Urban Makers.
Yeah, that's right.
About maybe a year and a half ago or something like that. Wow. Yeah. So you tend to just do Canopy Market now then?
So that had been, I kind of fell into it by accident, to be honest. I didn't really mean to do a weekly market.
Yeah.
I did a couple of weeks there and it went really, really well. And I kind of just thought, why not try it a bit more often? And it carried on working, and it brought a real kind of stability to the cash flow that I really appreciated. So it kind of gave me a bit of space to explore other things while knowing that I had a certain amount of money coming in every week.
Yeah, that's really good. And I guess as you're there, people sort of start to recognise you, and you get the same customers coming back, and they know where you're based, which is really good.
Yeah, exactly. And it was a lovely little community there as well. All the other traders were really lovely, and it was quite small. It's not like trading somewhere like Spitalfields where you never even get to meet everyone who works there.
Yeah.
It was a really lovely little place to kind of all sort of collaborate and talk about how our different small businesses were growing.
I'm sure it'll be lovely again. I'm sure you'll be able to go back.
Yeah, no, it's a bit of a weird one. I'm not sure it will, at least in the immediate future, it's going to get back to how it was. So it came at a bit of the lockdown came at a bit of a weird time, because I've been planning to move to Bristol.
Oh, have you?
We gave up our flat, and then because we were in the middle of lockdown and I wasn't really working at Canopy, I didn't want to take on a new contract. So I'm back at my parents in Somerset at the moment.
Oh, wow.
And then hoping to get to Bristol at some point. And with Canopy, it's going to start again in July, but I think the way we think about those kind of retail environments is going to be really different for a while. So I really want to take a bit of time to consider what what customers kind of need to get out of it and what I need to get out of it, and how to really make that work rather than kind of just rushing straight back in with hand sanitizer, essentially.
Yeah,
exactly. And you've got a product that people want to pick up and, you know, hold to their ears. And
yeah, exactly. And there's, I think when you're selling jewelry, it's such a kind of connection between you and the person, the piece and the person, because it's something that you wear on your body. So the nice thing about coming to buy it at a market is you can really kind of see that connection happening in person right there and then. But with all the, I guess, the kind of safety measures that we need to take to protect everyone, it's naturally going to be quite a different sort of experience.
It is,
So kind of need to, I think that there is going to be a way that it can still work for us and for customers, and we can all still get something out of it, but I think it needs a bit of kind of proper thought about exactly how that's going to work and what that is.
Definitely. Well, let's just start at the very beginning. Like, so take you back to your childhood. What were you like as a sort of a teenager growing up?
What was I like as a teenager? Pretty geeky, I think. Definitely. I spent a lot of time in the library. I had ME when I was a teenager, so I was actually really quite ill for a lot of my teenage years, which had a huge impact on the kind of normal social stuff that like I might have been doing otherwise. So yeah, really loved reading, always really loved drawing, used to write like little very cheesy stories and things like that. And just I think making art was always kind of part of how I dealt with everything that happened. So I think that's always been a really kind of like a big part of who I was as a teenager, and kind of continued out throughout my life, really.
Yeah, and how was it difficult for you with ME? Like, what were your symptoms?
So I think I was quite lucky in some ways, because some people get a lot of pain, but for me it was just really extreme fatigue.
Okay.
So I couldn't, when I was really bad, I couldn't really get out of bed. That went on for maybe 3 or 4 months, and then I like just very slowly got better. So slowly became able to do more and more different things and go back to school a little bit. And then by the time I was at university, I was pretty much able to kind of attend full time and live more of a normal life.
Yeah, that was really difficult at the time as well, like going through teenagers with that, when everything's a bit confusing anyway. And
I mean, I guess when you're experiencing it, you don't really, don't know any different. So you just kind of like cope with what kind of comes your way. But I think it definitely gave me a different teenage experience to ones that a lot of my friends have, for sure.
Definitely. And so you sort of threw yourself into art as a relief of that.
Yeah, I think art and books were the two things, because obviously they're things that you could, even if you don't have a lot of energy, they're things that you can still do kind of as and when you do have a bit of energy to spend on them. So those were the two things that I really kind of enjoyed during that time.
Were you ever torn between them when you kind of went up to like kind of higher education? Were you ever thinking, oh, I might want to go into languages, English, or was it a creative route? Was there any kind of decisions to be made there? Was it hard?
No, you know what? I am much better visually than I am with words. Like I really respect writers, and I really enjoy reading, but it's never been the way that I think I've been that good at expressing myself. I think, I've always had much more of a natural aptitude for kind of visual arts, and I think when you get that reinforcement as you're growing up, then I think it becomes a more natural path for you to take if you're getting that feedback of like, this is something that you're good at, and then you really enjoy it, then so I think the only other way that I think I might have gone if I hadn't gone down the creative route is because I am a bit of a geek. I took physics and history as my A levels.
Oh wow.
So I've always found that kind of like how the world works stuff really fascinating. So that's obviously two really different kind of aspects of how the world works. But yeah, I always think that maybe when I retire, I'll go and do a degree in something completely uncreative and
Yeah,
all that stuff.
So you said that your parents are in Somerset. Is that where you grew up?
No, so my parents have moved loads since I left home. So I grew up in Devon,
Okay.
in a tiny little village called Ugborough, for any Devon people out there.
Oh, amazing. So what was life like there? Were you sort of in nature quite a lot?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think it's really where I grew up is really close to the sea and really close to Dartmoor.
Okay.
So it's kind of in a perfect position in terms of like getting into nature, either going walking on the moors or going swimming in the sea a lot.
Yeah.
I think as a teenager, I really craved something a bit more urban. I think I appreciate it a lot more now, having this chance to kind of come back and live in the countryside with my parents for a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm really loving going out and kind of being in nature more. But I think when I was like 16, 17, I was just like, I just want to be in the city.
Yeah.
Definitely. And would you have like gone to the city with your friends for like days out and things like that to get a bit of a taste of the urban environment?
So I used to go to Plymouth, which is the kind of nearest big city. And then I went on a art trip to London when I was about 17, maybe first year of A levels.
Yeah.
And I remember getting off the bus and just kind of feeling like, oh my God, this is the place where I want to be. It just felt so exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And then did you kind of know at that point that you wanted to move to London and stay there for some time?
Yeah, I didn't end up going to university in London, but I always knew that I wanted to end up there after a while for
Yeah.
sure.
So where did you go to uni then?
I went to Kent Institute of Art and Design in Maidstone,
Yeah.
and I actually studied fashion design, so not what I'm doing now. Yeah, I think when I was choosing my degree, I think about it now, and I know some people who maybe took 2 or 3 years and went and worked in different kind of industries a bit before they chose. And in retrospect, I think maybe that would have been a better experience for me, because I think I just kind of went like, oh my God, I know I like making things. Like this is a way that I could maybe do that.
Yeah.
And I maybe didn't get as much out of it as I could have. And a lot of the stuff that I kind of needed to know for running my business, for example, I learned after my degree, working for other designers.
That's really interesting. So taking you back to your family setup, was there someone who was inspirational along the way, like someone creative in your family? Like how did you become creative?
So my gran was really creative. She always throughout my childhood, she was always doing courses. So she used to do leather work, and she made me some incredible things, like jewelry boxes and handbags. And she used to do these textile art pieces. And she never really, she nearly got to pursue it as a career. She started training as a tailoress, but I think my dad actually told me the other day while I was back here that she passed the 11 plus to go to grammar school, but her parents wouldn't let her because she was a girl, which just shows how much things have changed for us.
Yeah.
But I always felt like she had an incredible amount of talent and maybe hadn't been able to express it as much as she would have if she hadn't been born when she'd been born.
Yeah.
So yeah, she would always used to kind of encourage me, and I guess was just kind of having that kind of modeled in my life of someone just making things and enjoying it. That really influenced me for sure.
And did you get to make things together, like have little craft sessions?
Yeah, I remember staying at her house once, and she taught me how to make a necklace out of pumpkin seeds. So
Oh, wow.
which was amazing. So got the pumpkin, like literally from scratch, got the pumpkin, scooped out the seeds, washed them, dried them in the oven, and then threaded them on a string and to make a necklace, and gave it to my mum.
Oh,
That's
awesome.
so cool.
Yeah.
And what about your parents? Were they creative as well?
No, they are not in any way creative at all. They've always been very supportive of what I've wanted to do. But it's just not something that they're kind of like pulled in the direction of. But they're both quite kind of entrepreneurial. They've both had their own businesses, and so I think I get that kind of side from my parents rather than the creative side.
Yeah, a bit of confidence in sort of knowing that you can do it if they can do it.
Yeah, I think just knowing that you can make it work, even though like it was often really, really difficult, and they struggled when I was growing up especially, but knowing that even though it wasn't always going to be easy, that you could kind of make it through.
Yeah.
Do you get kind of help from them now? Are they a useful kind of source of information?
My dad always gives me excellent financial advice, which I don't always follow.
Oh, brilliant. Well, it's because it's there.
He's very good on the like save for your taxes and make sure that you're recording all your expenses and all that kind of thing. So, practical advice for sure.
It's all the things that creative people do last, isn't it? All the kind of admin, all the important, the actual important business stuff. Is like, I haven't met a creative person that kind of really, really enjoys it. They just know they have to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think you have to have some capacity in you somewhere to kind of do that, to make it work as a business rather than just as like something nice to do. But yeah, it's definitely not the fun part, is it?
No.
So did you fall out of love with London? You were saying you're thinking of moving to Bristol, but going back to when you were 17, it was like the best place ever. What happened in between?
I think I started wanting different things. I think I wanted something a bit more, something a bit more focused around community. I think I felt more ready to kind of like put roots down a little bit and invest in where I was. And also kind of like looking at the kind of earning potential of my business in the form that I like doing it. So basically I like making things and I get so much out of that. So I don't want to kind of be in a position where I have like a studio of people making things and I do a bit of design, but mainly I'm kind of running the business, which is the model that I've seen. I've worked in that kind of business before. And I think thinking about things like buying a house, for example, there's just no way that running the business that I love running, that's going to be possible in London.
Yeah.
So I've got a lot of friends in Bristol. So it was kind of like it was a really easy kind of nice thing of like, I'll go and explore somewhere new and different, which is always really exciting.
Definitely.
It's somewhere I already know people, and it's somewhere where there's the potential to kind of like put down those roots and build something a bit more permanent.
Yeah, that sounds great. So going back to your uni days in Kent, what was it like on your fashion design course?
I think it taught me some really kind of useful things about thinking conceptually about my work. And in some ways it left me completely unprepared for the real world of working in a design business. I don't think I had a lot of confidence, to be honest, when I was doing my degree. And I think in that kind of world, the people who get the most out of it are the people who know how to ask for what they want. And I think I was just a bit too kind of like unsure and like, oh, do I like, oh, scared of asking for what I needed. So I think that, yeah, there were ways in which the stuff that I learned that I've definitely kind of taken with me and have been really useful, and ways which I feel like we're out of it. Oh,
Cool.
Oh, we lost you.
Broken up a bit there. Oh, you're back.
oh. It's because I'm in Somerset, sorry. The internet's
Hopefully she'll be back in a minute.
Oh, are you back
there
now?
you go.
Hello.
You're back.
Hello.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
turned
we're
into
back.
a weird kind of robot.
Yeah. Hello.
Can it,
Oh,
am I working again now? Yes. Okay.
Kind of.
It's a bit stop-start, but yeah, we'll be back.
Okay.
Can
So,
you hear us, Vicky?
sorry, where were we?
Yeah, so
Yes, I can hear you.
you were
Can
saying
you hear me?
about, yeah, we can hear you now. So you were sort of saying on your course, you feel like you weren't particularly confident about it, and maybe you could have been a bit more forthcoming with what you wanted to get more out of it.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, it's a tricky one because, you know, looking back from where I am now, I've come such a long way from who I was then. But yeah, I feel like maybe it didn't, if I'd had a couple of years doing something else first, I think I might have got more out of my degree. So I feel like it was, although there was some things that I learned that have been really from working in the design industry.
Yeah. Would you
Did you
do you think? Yeah, it just broke up a little bit, but we kind of got the gist. Do you think you would have studied fashion if you were to choose again, or would you choose something else?
I mean, I really love jewelry now, so
Yeah.
I think that would totally be it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I liked fashion, and I still like fashion because it's to do with people's identities, and I find that really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But I think with jewelry, you get that kind of like all that stuff about who you are and your body and the relationship between the object and the body. And also what you're making is essentially like kind of body sculpture.
Yeah.
So the form doesn't have to be that tied to the kind of like the practical aspects, I guess, of designing clothes.
Definitely.
So I really love jewelry for that, and I totally study that if I was choosing now.
Yeah, so maybe that kind of leads nicely on to tell us a little bit about your jewelry.
Yeah. So I started making jewelry while I was working for a shoe designer, and I think I just was quite into buying jewelry at the time, and it just kind of seemed a natural kind of progression to start kind of looking at design and making my own.
Yeah.
And I actually started making jewelry out of leather. So
Did you?
that was because I was working for a shoe designer. There was a lot of scraps around, and it was a material I was kind of like familiar with. Um, and it was when I got to like a certain point in my practice, there was stuff that I wanted to do that I couldn't. And at that point, in terms of like the metalwork side of things, so at that point I went and did an evening course at an adult community college in silversmithing to get those kind of like more basic metalwork skills.
Yeah.
Yeah, and after that it
Amazing.
was just kind of experimenting until I found jesmonite, which is what I use now. Yeah, and then I kind of like went back to, I actually had this moment at a craft market, one of the first ones I did, where I looked around and realized that my work wasn't that different to a lot of other people's work.
Yeah.
And at that point, I think I had a real moment of like, okay, if I want to do this and make it work, I need to really make it kind of me and make it really different.
Yeah.
So at that point, I kind of called back on that kind of concept stuff that I had learned in college, and that's the point where I kind of brought that back in and really kind of started from scratch, thinking, you know, what am I interested in? And going through much more of a kind of process of exploring ideas and visually and exploring different materials. And yeah, sorry.
Yeah, cool.
No, I love it.
Yeah,
It's obviously inspired by architecture. You can see it in the pieces.
yeah, that's right. So I think I love the forms, and I also love the concepts of the kind of early modern, kind of modernist, utopian sort of art movements and architecture movements, that you can change the world through changing people's environment or changing the products around them, that you can really kind of help people. And although a lot of those projects failed in various different ways, I still love that kind of like force of, there's something more that you can give people from product design than making something pretty. So those, I think it's those kind of like architecture movements I've always found incredibly inspiring, and they normally sneak into my collections in some way or another.
Definitely. I mean, the Barbican's a really good example of that, isn't it? That kind of utopian vision.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the Barbican's such a beautiful building, and I would love to live in one of their flats. They're just, so gorgeous. I think that must be one of the most successful of the kind of utopian architecture projects.
I think so.
We just had a question there. Who is your favourite architect?
I think it's probably Frank Lloyd Wright. I really love his work. I also really love his drawings of his buildings. They look like kind of little intricate kind of honeycomb, but beautifully, I don't know, beautifully geometric kind of like line work. And if I can get it out, but I've actually got a tattoo of one of his building drawings on my arm. So.
That is commitment.
I was going to say I need to check out the drawings, but you've got it right there.
For ease of reference.
Yeah. Amazing.
And he also had the most incredible life story, which is very inspiring to anyone like me who started out on their kind of making journey a little bit older. So his first kind of like recognized building, like, that was sort of happened after he was 40. So basically the whole of his career happened after he was 40. And the Guggenheim, which is obviously one of his most famous buildings, he designed in his 80s.
Oh wow.
And in that time he had gone from like having a really great career, losing everything, teaching, kind of building it up back up slowly. So I really like his story from the point of view of it's not kind of like here to here, and you can have a really successful creative journey that isn't just A to B in a straight line.
Definitely. And it's, you know, it's never, like, we had someone on the chat show the other day, and they were saying it's never finished. Like, you can always keep going and keep developing, and that's what should drive you. You know, your journey's not done now when you do your best bit of work.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if I get to a point where I look at a collection that I've done or a piece of work that I've done and go like, I can't think of a way to make that better, I can't make that any better, then that's kind of really boring, isn't it?
Yeah.
You always want to be driven forward a little bit by that idea of like, oh, but the next thing that I'm going to make is going to be incredible.
Definitely, it keeps your business moving forward.
Do you take feedback from customers, like when you're with your new kind of collections when they come out, or 'cause obviously your work's quite conceptual? Do your customers kind of get into that? Are they interested in it?
I think I take practical feedback for sure, because obviously it's an object in relation to the body. So there's a lot of practical things that people have said about, say, previous work. That, like, for example, I once made, and actually still occasionally make, these really statement rings but they were really, really pointy. And lots of people used to pick them up and go like, I love this, but I'm going to hurt someone with it if I wear it. So I think practical considerations like that, yeah, I definitely always try and feed them back into my new collections and make things that are a pleasure to wear, as well as kind of just about my sort of conceptual ideas that I've got at that time.
Definitely. So you're obviously quite interested in the sustainability aspect of working as a designer maker, and how do you sort of put that forward in your business?
I've done a lot of work on that lately, actually. I used to share a studio with a jeweler called Emma Aitchison, who, I don't know if you know, but she's her business is all about kind of sustainability from start to finish. So I've learned a lot from her about things like about workshop practice and materials, and so I think although it's not kind of part of my branding or anything, sustainability, I think as designers we all have a responsibility to think about the impact of the materials that we're using, as part of our practice. So I think when I'm sourcing, especially for things that I'm not making, it's definitely something that I pay a lot of attention to try and make sure that it's made somewhere that there's kind of like good regulations around labor, and where possible that the materials are recycled or ethically sourced. And I think the more we all ask questions of our suppliers around that kind of thing, the more that people will see there's demand for that, and the faster the industry will move forward.
Yeah, and isn't Jesmonite like a sustainable material?
Well, I've had this conversation with them, because I've seen a lot of people saying that Jesmonite is a sustainable material, and it's as a resin, it's one of the best resins. It's not toxic, it's solvent free, it's water based, so it has it's free of a lot of the difficulties that you'd find in more traditional resins. But it is still got an acrylic element, which is obviously plastic based, so it's good, but it's not completely sustainable.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, can it be reused or recycled afterwards?
So in my studio I can recycle any waste, but as it couldn't be like the finished piece couldn't be recycled as like a plastic unless someone sent it back to me, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So what have you done in your jewellery business that you'd say you were most proud of?
So I think it's probably doing collaborations. So the last one that I did was with the Science Museum.
Oh wow.
And yeah, being invited in by some institution that I really love and respect, like the Science Museum.
Interest in you must have just been like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, and being kind of given free rein and the trust to design a collection for them based around science, anything from science. It was my dream. I think I love that. I guess it's someone trusting my design sensibility, and seeing my work somewhere that I really love and love to go.
Yeah,
so, yeah,
that is an amazing thing to have happened for you.
Yeah, it was very, very exciting.
Yeah. And what would you say has been your biggest struggle?
Ooh, I think work-life balance has probably been my biggest struggle. I think it's really easy to think that you ought to be working all the time, and I find it, like, especially with the making, because it's like quite therapeutic and soothing, and so it's easy to just kind of fall into this idea of like it's okay to be there till 10 o'clock at night, and really really pushing myself and not and I guess feeling guilty if I take time off, when it's just you and kind of all the pressures on you, especially when you start employing people, that you really have to kind of make that money, make that order to kind of to pay everyone. I think making that separation to, this is my personal life now, and no, I am going to just leave this here and shut my laptop and go and do something else for a few hours.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think getting that right is an ongoing kind of work.
Yeah.
So would you say that maybe some other aspects of your life have been sidelined a bit because of the business?
I think, I mean, I've got really amazing friends who always kind of like pull me back. So I think from that side of things, I'm really lucky. But yeah, I think it's not good for your only creative outlet to be your work, I think.
Yeah.
So I think I've neglected hobbies, basically. I don't have any hobbies that aren't my business.
I think you say that to me as well. Like, my hobby is making jewellery, the same, and I'm just like, well, that is a hobby, but it's not when it's your business.
Yeah, exactly. And you need, I think it's really healthy to have a creative outlet that your income isn't relying on, where you can just play a bit more and make mistakes. And so I used to try and go to life drawing, and at the end of every session because it wasn't about like having a product to walk away with.
No.
It's just about kind of enjoying the process. But yeah, I think when it has been your hobby and then it becomes your business, which I'm guessing is the same for you guys.
Actually, we just sort of, it wasn't our hobby before.
It was for me.
It was for you.
I teach design technology, so I've always made things, and I like being in the workshop environment. And then we started to kind of bring that home, I guess. But for Ali, that was completely new, so she learned a new set of skills.
Yeah.
So I guess it wasn't a hobby for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really amazing.
Maybe it still counts as my hobby then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is good now. It is your job, to try and find a little bit of time, which I guess you guys just had a baby, haven't you? So that must have been really difficult.
Just like keeping a lot of plates spinning, to be honest.
Yeah.
All nice plates, so it's good.
Yeah.
Good.
We've had a question about recycling. I don't know if we can.
Do you start your recycling because of Precious Plastic Project by Dave? Did you start your recycling because of Precious?
So I think I have seen the Precious Plastic Project, and I think that's really amazing, and I'd love to find a way to use that in my work at some point. But with the type of jesmonite that I use, it's quite different. Because it's a composite, so most of it, there's like a little bit of plastic in it, but most of it is other things. It's like natural minerals. So the way that I reuse it is part of other same pieces, if that makes sense.
Kind of like recasting it again.
Yeah, so like the terrazzo thing, for example, I can cast that really easily, and I do that for workshops sometimes using the kind of remnants of things that I've cast in the studio.
Yeah. Oh, amazing.
That's good.
That's cool. So obviously current events have sort of thrown everything up in the air, but how's it affected your practice?
It's been a really big shift, for sure, from doing the market every week to I think in some ways it was a real blessing in disguise, because there's other aspects of my business that I really wanted to develop. So doing a new website, for example, and I've done a lot of work around material sourcing and things like that in the last few months, and I don't think I'd have been able to move so fast so far if I had been trying to juggle everything else as well.
Definitely.
So I've kind of taken a couple of months to just kind of like go back and relook at everything, and then put it all back together again, and then kind of come back, which I did with the new website for the Crafty Fox online market a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And since then it's just been thrown right back into making, so orders and wholesale and things are starting to start up again now. So
Fantastic. And do you do a lot of wholesale?
Yeah, it's always been a reasonably big part of my business. I think I focused more on kind of like bigger projects in the last couple of years, because when I first started, I used to stock a lot of really small shops, which is really amazing, but it's quite hard to make that work. Where if you're getting wholesale orders that are like £100, it's quite hard to make that work financially for you. So yeah, I've done more kind of bigger projects, and then they have kind of ongoing orders. So like the Science Museum, and I did one for Lefroy Whiskey Distillery the year before that. So those kind of wholesale design projects, I guess, have been a much bigger part of my business.
That's really exciting, obviously working with those really big brands as well.
Yeah, no, it's nice to do something new. I think it's nice to be challenged.
Definitely. So have you got any tips for anyone listening, maybe someone who wants to start up a jewelry company?
So my advice on this is always just start. Like just start. Start making things, start kind of putting your work out there, but be prepared to learn. So no one gets it exactly right straight away, and I think that the difference between the ones that kind of carry on and the ones that don't is that ability to kind of look at how things have gone and kind of be really honest with yourself, but not so harsh that you just kind of like give up in despair. And just go like, okay, like maybe this hasn't worked, what is it that I need to do differently?
Yeah, you seem to be very good at analysing your work.
Yeah, I think it's just I actually really enjoy it. The kind of like critical element, I guess, and I used to do it for other designers in my studio, and it's something that I hope I might like make more part of my life at some point. But yeah, I think that idea of changing things to be better is like a challenge that I enjoy. So for me, I think that part of things feels almost like a positive, but I think it's really important when you're starting out to have a bit of both, to have a bit of faith in what you're making and like love for what you're making, but also to be really kind of honest with yourself about where the areas that you can improve are.
Definitely, and I think you've left a really honest and open sort of story on your website as well, which was really nice to read, wasn't it? About your journey.
Okay. It always feels a bit, yeah, I guess a bit exposing writing those kind of things. I definitely had a few different goes at it, but
yeah, it does.
Sorry?
It takes a lot of reworking, doesn't it, to get it right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
I think it benefits from being open.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think you wouldn't do this and make all the sacrifices if you didn't kind of like want to make something authentic to you. So it doesn't really make sense to me to kind of hide that. I think it's part of my journey and who I am, and that's the thing that I'm kind of happy to share.
Yeah, and I think that's what
good.
people connect with over your work as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think I've always thought that I'm much better at doing that in person than I am online. So with this new website, it was a real attempt for me to try and convey what I'd tell you if I was talking to you in person with what you can kind of read on my website.
Yeah, I think you've done a really great job.
Oh, thank you.
So for our audience listening, if you could just let them know how's best to follow you up.
So you can follow me on Instagram, or you can check out my website, which is promisespromisesjewellery.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, you're welcome. It's been really lovely to chat to you. Thank you for having me.
And you. You're very welcome. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
You too.
So take care.
Great.
Yeah, you too. Take care. Have a lovely evening.
Bye.
Bye, Vicky.
Bye.